Mod. Named for the modern jazz its participants enjoyed, mod is a youth subculture that emerged in Britain during the late 50s and 60s, primarily as a product of the Second World War. Its participants mostly consisted of working-class men who held positions such as clerks or comparable jobs. The history of this movement can be traced back to a group of tailor's sons in 1958 who began obsessing over their style and how good their clothing looked. It grew as a movement over the next decade, becoming one of the largest subcultures in Britain. For these teens, mod represented a breach with cultural norms of the past. Many of these youths were frustrated with the morals, set roles, and requirements that society imposed on them. One large change was the inclusion of women. Mods cared less about gender roles and didn't see a reason why a woman couldn't participate in their movement. The adoration of continental European culture, particularly Italian culture, deepened their perceived reach with the past. Key traits of mod culture include fashionable clothing, the use of scooters, the use of amphetamines, and a distinctive taste in music. The first important characteristic of mod culture was a fixation on fashion. These youths were dissatisfied with the bland clothes of the past and the American-influenced clothes of their peers. They became focused on developing and improving their own personal style. The economic boon England found itself in after the war allowed them to spend more money on clothes than generations before them could. They preferred slim ties, tailor-fitted suits, and Italian-made brands. They would further modify their look using symbols such as the Royal Air Force insignia. Scooters would also become a pillar of mod culture. Despite the newfound affluence of this generation, scooters were still the most practical and affordable option for transportation, especially in urban areas such as the Soho district of London. Italian scooters, such as Vespas, also served as artifacts of Italian culture and style. As they did with their clothes, these youths would constantly seek ways to improve the style of their scooters, such as by adding ribbons or mirrors. The next key element was the use of amphetamines. Whether at a nightclub or coffee bar, mods could always be found pulling all-nighters, hanging out, or engaging in meticulous self-examination. To accomplish this, they needed a drug that could keep them focused and awake all night. Amphetamines, or Purple Hearts, named for the shape and color of the pill, proved to be the perfect drug for this. It was the most stylish drug since users avoided the perceived ugliness and lack of control of being drunk or high. This would become the drug of choice for the movement, similar to how the hippie movement had LSD. The music they enjoyed was suave, sophisticated, and new. Genres of choice for these youths included the emerging R&B, soul, and ska genres. These genres carried the appeal of modern jazz, which became the namesake of the movement. Motown Records and music collectors helped spread these genres in Britain. This music could be heard at clubs or coffee bars late into the night. Several new artists emerged during this time that offered a fast-paced, more mod-centric take on these existing genres. Two notable bands, The Small Faces and The Who, had origins in mod and would go on to gain more mainstream fame in the 70s. When it comes to why the mod movement occurred, the discussion ends up highlighting two things: the emergence of consumerist culture and the mod's refutation of the society they belong to. Dick Hebdige in The Meaning of Mod argues that the latter was the driving force behind the movement. As he puts it, the style they created constituted a parody of the consumer society in which they were situated. The mod dealt its blows by inverting and distorting the images of neatness of short hair, so cherished by his employers and parents, to create a style, while which being overtly close to the straight world was nonetheless incomprehensible to it. However, there is evidence to suggest that the mods were more influenced by consumerism than they would like to think. While it is undeniable that part of their existence came out of a clash with the rest of society, the presence of a key aspect of consumerism, conspicuous consumption, is impossible to ignore. Many aspects of mod style, particularly the expensive clothing and Italian scooters, fall into the category of conspicuous consumption. In other words, the type of things the mods would buy were easily flaunted towards others, mod or not. In a period where the average British person was wealthier than ever, it is easy to see how the desire to flaunt and celebrate this newfound wealth could take root in these youths. The advent of mod culture is in part due to the encroachment of modern consumerism in British society. While we have explored how the mods reacted, one can also examine how other groups were affected by the same patterns. For example, the rockers, a rival subculture of mods, engaged in conspicuous consumption through their purchase of American clothes and records. So the best answer to why the mod subculture evolved factors in these youth distaste with parent society and their embrace of modern consumerism. While the original mods may be extinct, the proliferation of the mod image in the last few decades occurred hand in hand with the creation of the consumer society of today, making the legacy of mod one of consumerism and resistance.